My beloved brothers and sisters, one of the most painful habits we develop is chasing people who have already shown us they do not choose us. We give time where there is no value, effort where there is no appreciation, and love where there is no commitment. And each time we do this, we slowly drain our dignity and exhaust our hearts. Islam teaches us something far more powerful. You were never created to beg for attention or force your place in someone's life. When someone does not choose you, it is not a reflection of your worth. It is a redirection from Allah. The moment you stop chasing what rejects you, Allah frees your heart for what is meant for you. Letting go is not loss, it is protection. And trusting Allah in this moment is the beginning of peace, strength, and self-respect. Chasing rejection slowly breaks your self-worth. Chasing rejection slowly damages the way a person sees themselves, even if they do not notice it at first. Each time you pursue someone who repeatedly shows disinterest, your heart absorbs a quiet message that you are not enough. Islam teaches us that dignity is not something we earn from people. It is something Allah grants us by default. When you chase rejection, you unintentionally hand others the authority to measure your worth. This creates inner conflict because your value is no longer anchored in Allah's view of you, but in someone else's response. Over time, this weakens confidence, clouds judgment, and drains emotional strength. The believer was never created to beg for attention or chase validation. Allah honored you before anyone else ever knew you. When that honor is forgotten, the heart becomes tired, restless, and unsure. Protecting self-worth begins by recognizing that rejection is not a verdict on your value, but a sign that you are walking toward the wrong door. When rejection is chased repeatedly, the heart begins to normalize being undervalued. What once felt unacceptable slowly becomes familiar. Islam warns us about becoming comfortable with harm, especially emotional harm. The believer may start lowering standards, excusing disrespect, or accepting inconsistency just to stay connected. This is where self-worth erodes quietly. The heart compromises its needs to preserve a connection that was never balanced. Allah does not ask His servants to shrink themselves to be accepted. He asks them to stand firm with dignity. Chasing rejection teaches the soul to settle for less than it deserves. Over time, the settlement creates inner resentment and sadness. The believer feels drained but cannot explain why. The reason is simple. The heart knows it is giving more than it is receiving. Islam teaches balance in relationships, and when balance is lost, peace disappears. Chasing rejection also creates emotional dependency. The believer begins to rely on small signs of attention for relief. A delayed reply, a cold response, or silence then feels devastating. This dependency weakens the heart because peace becomes conditional. Islam teaches that peace should come from reliance on Allah, not from people's behavior. When rejection is chased, emotional stability is placed in fragile hands. The heart becomes anxious, always waiting, always hoping, always fearing loss. This anxiety chips away at self-respect. The believer forgets that their time, energy, and emotions are amana from Allah. They are meant to be guarded, not spent chasing someone who has already turned away. Emotional dependency grows where trust in Allah weakens. Repeated rejection also distorts perception. The believer may start believing that persistence will eventually create value. Islam teaches us that what is written for you comes with ease, not humiliation. Chasing rejection makes difficulty feel normal and ease feel undeserved. This distortion affects how the believer approaches future relationships. They may unconsciously accept struggle as a requirement for love or belonging. Allah never designed love to break your spirit. Love that honors Allah also honors dignity. When rejection is chased, the heart learns the wrong lesson. It learns endurance instead of discernment. Discernment protects self-worth. Endurance without wisdom destroys it. Chasing rejection also silences self-respect. The believer may ignore inner warnings, intuition, and discomfort just to maintain connection. Islam teaches us that the heart has awareness. When that awareness is repeatedly ignored, confidence in one's judgment weakens. The believer begins doubting themselves rather than the situation. This self-doubt becomes heavy. Allah does not want His servants questioning their worth because of others' inability to value them. Rejection is information, not a challenge to be conquered. When the believer treats rejection as something to overcome rather than something to accept, they fight against divine redirection. That fight exhausts the soul. Self-worth is also damaged when the believer confuses effort with value. They may believe that if they try harder, give more, or sacrifice more, they will be chosen. Islam teaches us that effort is rewarded by Allah, not always by people. When effort is poured into someone who does not reciprocate, disappointment follows. Over time, the believer may feel unseen and unappreciated. This feeling slowly eats away at self-esteem. Allah never ties your worth to how much you give to someone who gives nothing back. He ties your worth to your sincerity, faith, and character. Chasing rejection blurs this truth. The Prophet ﷺ taught us that what is meant for you will not miss you, and what is not meant for you will not reach you. Chasing rejection is acting against this principle. It is trying to force what Allah has not written. Force always comes at a cost, and that cost is often self-worth. When the believer trusts Allah, they stop forcing doors that resist them. Trust restores dignity. Dignity restores peace. Peace strengthens self-respect. This chain is broken when rejection is chased instead of accepted. Chasing rejection also delays healing. The believer stays emotionally attached to a source of pain, reopening wounds repeatedly. Islam encourages moving forward with wisdom, not staying where harm continues. Healing requires distance. Distance allows clarity. Clarity restores self-worth. When rejection is chased, healing is postponed. The heart remains in a constant state of hope and hurt. Allah does not want His servants trapped in emotional limbo. He wants them progressing towards stability and peace. There is also spiritual cost in chasing rejection. The heart becomes preoccupied with people instead of Allah. Du'a becomes anxious rather than trusting. Worship loses presence because the mind is distracted. Islam teaches us that attachment should be directed upward, not outward. When rejection is chased, attachment is misplaced. This misplacement weakens both faith and self-respect. Returning attachment to Allah strengthens both. The believer realizes that Allah's acceptance is enough, even when people walk away. Chasing rejection teaches the heart to negotiate its boundaries. Boundaries are a form of self-respect. Islam allows boundaries because they protect the soul. When boundaries are crossed repeatedly in the hope of being chosen, self-worth suffers. The believer may feel guilty for wanting respect or consistency. Allah never made dignity something to feel guilty about. Dignity is obedience. Protecting it is worship. When rejection is chased, this truth is forgotten. Letting go of rejection feels painful at first because the heart has invested deeply. But Islam teaches us that short pain protects from long damage. Walking away restores self-worth gradually. the believer begins to remember who they are beyond someone else's opinion. Confidence returns slowly but steadily. Allah replaces what is released with something better, often unseen at first. That replacement carries peace, not confusion. Respect, not struggle. In the end, chasing rejection slowly breaks self-worth because it teaches the heart to accept less than what Allah intended. When the believer stops chasing those who do not choose them, they stop bleeding dignity. They return their value to where it belongs with Allah. And when self-worth is restored through faith and trust, the heart becomes strong, calm, and ready for what is truly meant to stay. Being unchosen is often divine protection. Being unchosen can feel like rejection at first, but Islam teaches us to look beyond the surface of pain and toward the wisdom beneath it. When someone does not choose you, the heart naturally asks why. Yet Allah, in His infinite knowledge, sometimes removes people from your path to protect you from harm you cannot see. What feels like loss may actually be mercy in disguise. Allah sees the future clearly while we see only the present moment. He knows what would have drained your peace, weakened your faith, or damaged your heart. Being unchosen may spare you from a relationship that would have cost you your dignity or pulled you away from your values. Protection does not always arrive wrapped in comfort. Sometimes it comes as disappointment, guiding you away from what is not written for you and closer to what is. Many believers struggle to accept being unchosen because they assume it reflects their worth. Islam corrects this belief gently. Your value is not determined by someone else's inability to choose you. Allah chose you before anyone else ever did. He chose you to carry faith, dignity, and purpose. When someone walks away, it does not diminish what Allah placed within you. Often Allah removes people who cannot honor what He has given you. Being unchosen protects you from remaining in spaces where you would have been undervalued. This protection preserves self-respect and emotional stability. The believer learns that not every closed door is rejection. Many are shields placed by Allah to prevent unnecessary pain. Divine protection often works quietly. Allah may not explain immediately why someone left or why something did not work out. This silence is not neglect, it is trust. Trust that Allah's wisdom is greater than your understanding. Being unchosen may protect you from compromise. Some relationships demand that you shrink yourself, overlook red flags, or silence your needs. Allah does not want His servants losing themselves to be accepted. When someone does not choose you, Allah may be protecting your character, your boundaries, and your iman. This protection allows you to remain whole rather than broken by constant sacrifice. Sometimes being unchosen protects you from emotional exhaustion. Chasing approval, affection, or consistency from someone who is unsure drains the soul slowly. Islam teaches us that peace is a priority, not a luxury. Allah removes what disrupts peace persistently. When someone does not choose you, Allah may be sparing you years of emotional confusion and instability. What ends early may save you from a deeper wound later. The believer who reflects understands that Allah's mercy often shortens pain rather than prolonging it. Being unchosen can also protect you spiritually. Certain connections weaken remembrance, distract from worship, or pull the heart toward unhealthy attachment. Allah guards the hearts of His servants carefully. When a relationship threatens spiritual balance, Allah intervenes. This intervention may come as distance, rejection, or loss. Though painful, it protects the believer's connection with Allah. Islam teaches us that nothing is more valuable than faith. If something threatens faith, Allah removes it lovingly, even if the removal hurts. Divine protection sometimes saves you from future regret. Allah knows what choices would have led to sorrow, resentment, or spiritual emptiness. Being unchosen today may protect you from wishing tomorrow had gone differently. The believer may not understand immediately, but time reveals wisdom. Later, the heart often looks back with gratitude, realizing that what did not work out was never meant to last. Allah's protection reveals itself slowly, with clarity replacing confusion. Being unchosen may also redirect you toward growth. When one door closes, the believer is invited to focus inward, strengthen faith, and rebuild confidence. Islam teaches us that hardship refines the soul. Being unchosen can awaken self-respect and clarity. It teaches the believer to stop seeking validation from people and start relying on Allah. This reliance brings inner strength. Allah protects His servants by guiding them towards self-worth rooted in faith rather than approval. Sometimes Allah protects you from people who are not ready to value you. Timing matters in Islam. What is good may come later, not now. Being unchosen may not mean never chosen. It may mean not yet or not by that person. Allah's protection ensures you are not prematurely attached to someone who cannot meet you with sincerity and consistency. This protection preserves hope without wasting emotional energy. Divine protection also shields the believer from repeating harmful patterns. Being unchosen forces reflection. Reflection reveals lessons. Lessons prevent repetition. Allah uses disappointment to teach discernment. Discernment protects future choices. The believer becomes wiser, more aware, and less likely to settle for less than what aligns with faith and values. This wisdom is a form of protection that lasts beyond one experience. Being unchosen reminds the believer that Allah alone is the constant. People change, feelings shift, and intentions fade, but Allah remains. When someone leaves, Allah stays closer. This closeness comforts the heart. Islam teaches us that reliance on Allah never disappoints. Being unchosen by creation draws the believer closer to the Creator. This closeness brings peace that people cannot provide. Over time, the believer begins to see being unchosen as redirection rather than rejection. Allah redirects paths gently but firmly. He closes doors to guide His servants toward better ones. This redirection protects time, energy, and emotional well-being. What is meant for you will arrive without force, confusion, or loss of dignity. Allah's protection ensures that what stays brings peace, not pain. In the end, being unchosen is often divine protection because Allah loves His servants too much to leave them where they would be harmed. What feels painful today may be mercy unfolding quietly. When the believer trusts this truth, the heart heals, faith strengthens, and gratitude replaces regret. And Allah, seeing that trust, replaces what was taken with something far better, kinder, and lasting. Love that must be forced is not love. Love that must be forced slowly drains the heart rather than nourishing it. Islam teaches us that what is written for you flows with ease, not strain. When love requires constant chasing, convincing, or proving your worth, it stops being a source of comfort and becomes a source of anxiety. The heart feels restless because it senses imbalance. Genuine love does not require you to shrink yourself, silence your needs, or accept inconsistency. Allah created love to bring tranquility, not tension. When effort is one-sided, dignity is compromised. The believer begins to question their value, wondering why love feels so heavy. But the truth is simple. Love that comes from Allah never humiliates His servants. Forced love demands effort without peace, sacrifice without security, and patience without reassurance. This is not the love Islam teaches. Allah does not want you exhausted by affection that never settles. Love meant for you will meet you halfway, calmly and clearly. When love must be forced, it often means one heart is ready while the other is unsure. Islam teaches clarity in intentions because uncertainty breeds pain. A heart that truly loves does not keep you guessing about your place. It does not make you compete for attention or question your worth. Forced love thrives on hope rather than commitment. The believer keeps hoping things will change while the situation remains the same. Over time, hope turns into emotional fatigue. Allah protects His servants from prolonged uncertainty because uncertainty weakens the soul. Love that is meant for you will bring assurance, not confusion. It will feel steady, not fragile. When love feels fragile, constantly at risk of breaking, it is often a sign that it is being held together by effort rather than sincerity. Forced love also teaches the heart the wrong lessons. It teaches that pain is normal, that neglect is acceptable, and that consistency is a luxury. Islam teaches the opposite. Love rooted in faith honors respect, responsibility, and mercy. When love must be forced, the believer may begin lowering standards to keep the connection alive. This lowering slowly erodes self-respect. Allah does not ask His servants to settle for emotional crumbs. He provides love that nourishes, not love that starves. Forced love conditions the heart to tolerate imbalance. Balanced love strengthens the heart. Allah wants balance because balance preserves dignity. When balance is missing, peace disappears. Love that must be forced often silences the heart's intuition. The believer may feel something is wrong, yet continues because of attachment. Islam teaches us that the heart has awareness. When that awareness is ignored repeatedly, inner conflict grows. Forced love creates this conflict. One part of the heart wants peace, the other clings to hope. This internal struggle is exhausting. Allah never intended love to feel like an inner battle. Love should bring harmony between heart and mind. When love creates tension instead, it is often a sign that it is not aligned with Allah's wisdom for you. When love is forced, effort becomes transactional. The believer gives more, expecting that giving will eventually be rewarded with affection or commitment. Islam teaches that love is not earned through exhaustion. True love is a gift, not a prize for endurance. Allah gives love freely where it belongs. Forced love demands performance. It demands constant proving. This performance drains authenticity. The believer stops being themselves and starts becoming what they think will be accepted. This loss of self is one of the greatest harms of forced love. Allah wants you loved for who you are, not tolerated for how much you give. Forced love also delays healing and growth. The believer stays attached to something that does not nourish them, postponing the space needed for something better. Islam teaches us that letting go is sometimes obedience. Obedience to Allah's redirection protects the heart. When love is forced, the heart remains stuck in hope rather than moving forward in trust. Trust allows growth. Growth prepares the heart for what is written. Allah cannot replace what you cling to unwillingly. Releasing forced love creates room for peace to enter. The Prophet ﷺ taught us that what is meant for you will not miss you. Forced love operates on fear, fear of loss, fear of loneliness, fear of starting over. Islam replaces fear with trust. Trust reminds the believer that Allah's provision is not scarce, love written for you will arrive without pressure, without games, and without humiliation. When you trust Allah, you stop forcing doors that resist you. You learn to walk away with dignity rather than remain with anxiety. This choice strengthens faith. Forced love often consumes emotional energy that should be invested elsewhere. Worship weakens, focus scatters, and inner peace fades. Islam values emotional balance because it supports faith. Love should strengthen worship, not distract from it. When love pulls the heart away from Allah instead of toward Him, it becomes harmful. Allah removes harmful attachments through discomfort. Forced love feels uncomfortable because it is not aligned with peace. That discomfort is guidance, not punishment. Letting go of forced love hurts, but staying hurts more. Islam teaches us to choose the pain that leads to healing rather than the pain that leads to erosion. Forced love erodes self-worth slowly. Releasing it restores dignity gradually. Allah replaces what is released for His sake. This replacement may not be immediate, but it is always better. Better in peace, better in clarity, and better in faith. Love meant for you does not require chasing. It meets you with effort, clarity, and respect. It does not make you question your value or beg for consistency. Islam teaches us that ease is a sign of what is written. Ease does not mean absence of effort, but absence of humiliation. Love without humiliation is love worth keeping. When the believer understands this, they stop forcing what resists them. They trust Allah's plan over their attachment. This trust restores calm. Calm strengthens the heart. A strengthened heart recognizes that love should feel safe, not stressful. Allah wants His servants loved with dignity. In the end, love that must be forced is not love, because love from Allah never breaks your spirit. It supports you, honors you, and brings peace. When you stop forcing love and start trusting Allah, He guides your heart toward what will stay, what will nurture you, and what will never require you to lose yourself to be chosen. Letting go creates space for what is written. Letting go is one of the most misunderstood acts in life. Many people believe it means losing, failing, or giving up too soon. Islam teaches us something far deeper. Letting go is often an act of trust, not defeat. When you hold tightly to something that Allah is gently removing, your heart remains occupied, heavy, and restless. There is no space for what Allah has already written to arrive. The heart cannot receive while it is clenched. Letting go opens the hands of the soul. It allows divine replacement to enter. Allah does not remove without intending to replace, but replacement requires room. When the believer understands this, letting go becomes easier. It stops feeling like loss and begins to feel like preparation. Preparation for peace, clarity, and something better aligned with faith. Allah knows what belongs in your life and what does not. When you release what resists you, you are not walking away from goodness, you are stepping closer to it. Holding on to what is not written creates inner tension. The believer feels conflicted, constantly torn between hope and disappointment. Islam teaches us that peace comes from alignment with Allah's decree. When you let go, alignment begins. The heart stops fighting reality and starts trusting wisdom. This trust brings relief. Many people exhaust themselves emotionally because they believe persistence will change what Allah has already decided. But Islam reminds us that effort is rewarded when it is placed correctly. Letting go redirects effort toward growth rather than resistance. The believer learns that not every door is meant to be pushed. Some doors close because Allah knows what lies behind them would harm your heart. Releasing those doors protects faith and dignity. It clears the path ahead so that what is written can arrive without obstruction. Letting go also heals the heart from attachment that has become unhealthy. Attachment in Islam is meant to bring stability, not obsession. When attachment begins to consume peace, it becomes a burden. Allah does not want His servants burdened by what drains them. Letting go lightens the heart. A lighter heart hears guidance more clearly. When guidance is heard, direction becomes clear. This clarity creates space for Allah's plan to unfold gently. The believer begins to move forward rather than remain stuck in longing. Forward movement is a sign of trust. Trust invites blessings. Blessings require openness. Letting go creates that openness. Many believers fear letting go because they worry about emptiness. Islam teaches us that emptiness is temporary, but peace is lasting. When something leaves, the space it leaves behind is not meant to stay empty. Allah fills it with wisdom, strength, and often something better suited for your soul. But filling cannot occur if the heart remains crowded with what has already gone. Letting go acknowledges reality. Acknowledging reality is a form of faith. Faith allows the believer to move forward without bitterness. This movement is where healing happens. Healing prepares the heart for what is written. What is written arrives when the heart is ready, not when it is clinging to the past. Letting go also restores dignity. When the believer releases what does not choose them, they reclaim self-respect. Islam honors dignity deeply. Allah does not want His servants chasing what does not value them. When you let go, you send a message to your own heart that you trust Allah more than attachment. This trust strengthens Iman. Strong Iman attracts calm. Calm clears emotional noise. With noise removed, the heart becomes receptive. This receptivity is where divine provision enters. What Allah writes for you comes with ease, not humiliation. Letting go removes humiliation from the equation. Often, what prevents what is written from arriving is fear. Fear of being alone, fear of starting over, fear of uncertainty. Islam addresses fear by teaching tawakkul. Tawakkul is trusting Allah even when the path ahead is unclear. Letting go is tawakkul in action. It says, "Oh Allah, I trust you more than I trust my own grasp." This trust invites reassurance. Reassurance calms the heart. A calm heart is no longer desperate. Desperation blocks blessings. Calm attracts them. Letting go transforms desperation into trust. Letting go also breaks emotional cycles that repeat pain. The believer may find themselves returning to the same situations, hoping for different outcomes. Islam teaches us reflection so that lessons are learned. Letting go is often the lesson. Once learned, the cycle ends. Ending cycles creates space. Space allows new beginnings. New beginnings are often where Allah's writing becomes visible. Without letting go, the believer remains tied to old chapters. Allah cannot write a new chapter if the old one is still being reread. Closing chapters is not forgetting, it is accepting. Acceptance brings peace. Some blessings arrive only after release. The believer may not realize that holding on is delaying what Allah intends. Islam teaches us that Allah's timing is perfect. When the believer lets go at the right moment, doors open unexpectedly. These openings are not coincidences, they are divine responses to trust. Letting go shows Allah that your heart is willing to receive His plan rather than insist on your own. This willingness is beloved to Allah. He replaces what is released with something more fitting, more peaceful, and more lasting. Letting go also strengthens patience. Patience is not passive waiting, it is active trust. When you let go, you are not doing nothing, you are choosing faith over fear. This choice strengthens the soul. A strengthened soul does not panic when outcomes are delayed. It rests knowing Allah is working unseen. That rest creates emotional stability. Stability prepares the heart for responsibility and blessing. Allah does not give heavy blessings to fragile hearts. Letting go builds strength so the heart can carry what is written. Sometimes letting go means letting go of expectations, not people. Expectations can suffocate peace. Islam teaches us to hope without demanding. Letting go of rigid expectations allows Allah to surprise the heart with goodness. Surprises from Allah are often better than plans from people. When expectations loosen, gratitude grows. Gratitude attracts barakah. Barakah enriches what arrives. Letting go makes room for barakah to enter fully. Letting go also improves clarity. The believer begins to see situations without emotional fog. Clarity reveals truth. Truth guides decisions. Right decisions align with Allah's will. Alignment brings ease. Ease is a sign of what is written. When life begins to feel lighter after release, it is often confirmation that letting go was necessary. Allah replaces struggle with calm to reassure the believer they chose correctly. The Prophet ﷺ taught us that Allah is gentle with His servants. Letting go allows us to experience that gentleness. Instead of forcing outcomes, the believer learns to flow with divine wisdom. Flowing does not mean drifting, it means trusting direction. Direction brings purpose. Purpose stabilizes the heart. Stability creates peace. Peace makes room for blessings to settle. Over time, the believer realizes that letting go was not the end, but the beginning. What felt painful became freeing. What felt uncertain became guided. Allah often waits for release before He replaces. Replacement is not always immediate, but it is always intentional. The believer who lets go with faith never loses. They only transition. In the end, letting go creates space for what is written, because Allah cannot pour into a heart that is already full of resistance. When you release what is not meant to stay, you honor Allah's wisdom. And when you honor His wisdom, He honors your heart with peace, clarity, and blessings that arrive without force, without fear, and without regret. When you choose yourself for Allah's sake, He chooses you. When you choose yourself for Allah's sake, you are not acting out of pride or selfishness, you are acting out of faith. Islam teaches us that self-worth is not arrogance when it is rooted in obedience to Allah. Choosing yourself means refusing to place your dignity, iman, and emotional well-being in the hands of people who cannot honor them. Allah created you with value, and honoring that value is part of honoring Him. When you stop bending yourself to be accepted, you begin standing firmly in who Allah created you to be. This decision is not loud, but it is powerful. It tells your heart that Allah's pleasure matters more than people's approval. And when Allah sees a servant prioritizing faith over fear, He responds with care, guidance, and protection that no human could ever provide. Many people misunderstand choosing yourself as abandoning others, but Islam shows us that it is actually about returning to balance. You are allowed to step back from what drains your peace. You are allowed to say no when something compromises your values. When you choose yourself for Allah's sake, you choose honesty over pretense and clarity over confusion. This choice strengthens iman because it removes hypocrisy from the heart. Allah loves sincerity. When your actions align with your beliefs, the heart feels lighter. This lightness invites Allah's support. He chooses you by guiding your steps away from harm and toward what nourishes your soul. This guidance is subtle, but its effects are lasting. Choosing yourself also means trusting Allah's timing over emotional attachment. Sometimes people stay where they are not valued because they fear loneliness. Islam teaches us that being alone with Allah is better than being surrounded by people who weaken faith. When you choose yourself for Allah's sake, you accept solitude if it protects your heart. Allah honors this sacrifice. He fills that solitude with strength, clarity, and peace. Over time, what once felt empty becomes grounding. Allah chooses you by becoming closer to you than what you let go of. This closeness heals wounds that people could never heal. When you choose yourself for Allah, you also choose growth. Growth requires courage, and courage is born from trust. Islam teaches us that Allah does not abandon those who walk away from what harms them for His sake. He replaces what was lost with something better, even if it takes time. Choosing yourself breaks cycles of emotional exhaustion. The heart stops chasing validation and starts building resilience. Allah chooses you by strengthening your inner world. Strong hearts are not easily shaken by rejection or loss. They remain steady because they rely on Allah, not circumstances. Choosing yourself means setting boundaries without guilt. Islam allows boundaries because they protect dignity. When you choose yourself for Allah's sake, you are not rejecting people, you are rejecting harm. Allah chooses you by honoring those boundaries. He sends people into your life who respect them. He removes those who would repeatedly cross them. This is divine selection at work. Your circle becomes smaller but safer. Peace replaces chaos. Allah prefers quality over quantity, and when you trust Him, He proves this truth through experience. Many believers feel guilty for choosing themselves, fearing they may appear selfish. Islam corrects this fear gently. Choosing yourself for Allah's sake is choosing obedience over people pleasing. Allah does not reward those who lose themselves to keep others comfortable. He rewards those who stand firm with wisdom and patience. When you choose yourself, Allah chooses you by protecting your heart from resentment and burnout. You become emotionally healthier, spiritually stronger, and more present in worship. This presence deepens your connection with Allah, which is the greatest success. Choosing yourself also means walking away from what distracts you from Allah. Distractions are not always sinful, but they can still be harmful. When something consumes your thoughts and weakens your focus on Allah, choosing yourself means choosing redirection. Allah chooses you by replacing distraction with purpose. Purpose brings meaning. Meaning strengthens patience. Patience steadies the heart. Through this process, Allah reshapes your priorities gently, without force. You begin valuing peace over excitement and depth over noise. When you choose yourself for Allah's sake, you stop explaining your worth to people. Islam teaches us that dignity does not require permission. Allah chooses you by becoming your defender. You no longer feel the need to prove yourself because your heart knows who it belongs to. This certainty calms the mind. Calm strengthens character. Character attracts what aligns with it. Allah sends what matches your level of faith and self-respect. This is how divine selection unfolds quietly. Choosing yourself also heals the relationship you have with yourself. Many believers carry self-blame and doubt from past experiences. Islam teaches mercy, including mercy toward oneself. When you choose yourself for Allah's sake, you forgive yourself for staying too long where you were not honored. Allah chooses you by replacing shame with wisdom. Wisdom allows growth without self-punishment. This healing restores confidence rooted in faith rather than ego. Faith-based confidence is stable and humble. Allah loves this balance. Sometimes choosing yourself means choosing patience. Patience is not waiting aimlessly. It is trusting Allah actively. When you choose patience over desperation, Allah chooses you by granting emotional stability. Stability allows clear decisions. Clear decisions protect the heart from regret. Regret weakens faith, while clarity strengthens it. Allah's choice is seen in how your life becomes calmer, even if it becomes quieter. Quiet hearts hear guidance more clearly. Choosing yourself for Allah also refines your intentions. You begin asking different questions. Instead of asking, how do I keep them? You ask, how do I please Allah? This shift changes everything. Allah chooses you by aligning your desires with what benefits you spiritually. When desires align with guidance, inner conflict disappears. Peace settles naturally. This peace is not dependent on people. It flows from faith. Allah preserves this peace for those who protect their intentions. When you choose yourself, you also choose accountability. Islam teaches that accountability is a form of honor. You stop blaming others for your unhappiness and start taking responsibility for your choices. Allah chooses you by empowering you to change what you can and accept what you cannot. This balance strengthens resilience. Resilient hearts trust Allah even when outcomes are uncertain. Uncertainty no longer terrifies them. They walk forward calmly, knowing Allah walks with them. Choosing yourself also prepares you for healthier relationships. When you know your worth, you no longer tolerate imbalance. Allah chooses you by bringing connections that reflect mutual respect. These relationships feel lighter because they are not built on fear or dependency. They are built on clarity and trust. Allah does not give heavy blessings to hearts that are not ready. Choosing yourself prepares the heart to receive what is written. At times, choosing yourself may look like loss to others, but Islam teaches us that obedience may look strange to those who do not understand faith. Allah chooses you by compensating for every sacrifice made sincerely. Compensation may come as peace, guidance, or protection from unseen harm. These gifts are more valuable than temporary comfort. Allah knows what truly benefits you even when you do not. In the end, when you choose yourself for Allah's sake, you are choosing truth over fear, dignity over desperation, and faith over attachment. Allah responds by choosing you, guiding you, protecting you, and elevating you in ways no human ever could. And that divine choice brings a peace that stays, a strength that lasts, and a path that leads you closer to Him. My dear brothers and sisters, you were never meant to run after love, respect, or belonging. What is truly meant for you will come with ease, not exhaustion. Every time you let go of someone who does not choose you, you reclaim a piece of your dignity and open your heart to Allah's wisdom. Trust that Allah's redirection is mercy, not loss. The doors that close save you from paths that would have drained your peace. When you stop chasing people and start choosing yourself for the sake of Allah, your heart becomes lighter and your faith stronger. So walk away calmly. Do not beg, do not explain, and do not look back with regret. Place your trust in Allah, protect your self-worth, and believe with certainty that what Allah has planned for you is far better than what you had to force.